Alright guys, welcome to the channel, and today is going to be a very interesting, intriguing, but most importantly, nevertheless, very important video. Today we're going to touch on a little bit of psychology with practicality attached to it, more so in the sense of how to build an edge in terms of understanding principle behind certain type of actions. And this will be somewhat of a new series, I guess mini-series within some of the video that I make. One of the principles that I utilize to build my edge. I've reverse engineered most of the things that I have done to build my edge into a set of principle, and I'll be making some video that will hopefully help you learn from that and then find contextual ways to essentially incorporate it in your own way of operating. In today's video, we're going to be focusing on three-step formula to utilize to build an edge. So the very first one that I wanted to discuss is going to be the relationship between three key elements. Consistency is the first element, intensity is the second element, and then the final element is delivery of result. For you to even think of wanting to be a profitable trader, you need to understand these three, how they relate to each other, because if you do not understand the relationship between those three, you're going to struggle very much as a day trader. To be quite honest, as anything that you want to accomplish in life, whether that's an entrepreneur, whether that's when you're going to school, you're building a business, this will be synonymous regardless of the endeavor that you are pursuing, right? So pay close attention to this. If you want to achieve anything in life, you first need to be consistent. What I mean by that is that you need to do it for an extended period of time without quitting. That is like the bare minimum. That's like the fee to get your foot in the door, right? If you're not even consistent, if after 3 weeks or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, you give up, you don't even deserve to be part of the room. Let's push it aside. So that's number one. Number two is intensity. Now, because you are watching the chart every single day, or maybe you are in front of the market every single day, or maybe every week or every other week, right? Does not mean that you're guaranteed success. I said, if you've been trading for a year, but you're not putting a certain amount of intensity, right, attached to that consistency, that's going to play a major role in the delivery of the result that you have. Let me explain a little bit more and that and be more precise. For me, my formula in terms of high intensity versus low intensity is very simple and objective. If as a day trader, you are not in front of the market at least 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, essentially 3 days out of the 5 days of your trading days, and within 1 week, you're not intensively putting effort to see result fast or see what you're looking to accomplish or gain certain level of understanding fast enough. If you're only sitting on your chart, right, twice, 2 days a week, that is not enough in terms of intensity to see result relatively fast. If after 1 year you look back on average, how many times have you really come into the week, you watch the market, even if you didn't trade, you watch the market at least 2 days out of the 5 days a week has to offer trading days. If you only have done that twice on average, that means that the intensity that you have put in that period of time is not very that high. It's extremely, I would say, medium or low at best, right? Low or medium at best, I should say. Now, you need to also understand this. If your intensity is low, but you're consistent, where you're already meeting the first criteria as well, you have to be honest in terms of the delivery of the result. You should not be able to say, hey, I have not found my edge, or, I worked at this really hard, I'm not able to find. You shouldn't even be able to use that language, because you have to be honest about the effort that you have been putting in. If you're not putting a certain level of effort, a certain level of intensity, you have no right to demand a certain delivery of result within a specific period of time. That is the point of this concept and the point of this principle that I'm describing here. Now, if someone is putting 3 to 5 days a week, they are there, they're watching the market consistently, day in, like week in and week out, they're putting that type of intensity, probably within 6 months, they're going to be able to see the result that someone that put lower intensity for 2 years is able to see, right? Or is able even to catch, because they're condensing time and they are essentially trying to find ways to build an edge by putting more and more intensity. So by doing that, you put yourself in a position where your pattern recognition improves, right? You're able to see certain things more vividly, and then you're able to reiterate much faster, scale faster as well in your trading career. That is the point, right? So that's the formula. Intensity, consistency equal, right? Whatever you decide for, whatever you're going to do with those two, equal how much am I going to get in terms of the result that's being delivered. You have to be honest in regards to that. So if you're not honest in regards to that, you're simply going to either gaslight yourself into believing that you actually put in the work when in reality, you didn't really put any sort of real work behind it. So that's principle number one. Principle number two is going to be pattern recognition. You see, in order for you to actually develop your edge, you need to become good at recognizing pattern. Don't get it twisted. People will tell you that, you shouldn't be looking at pattern because that's not really your edge. Most profitable traders' edge are really them figuring out a pattern that works for them, that they have recognized by being very much consistent and applying a high intensity consistently for an extended period of time, and them recognizing a pattern that if eventually figure out a way to make money from it. Now, that pattern recognition, from the time when you recognize it to when it become an edge, there's actually 3 phases for that pattern to eventually turn into an edge. So I'm going to go through these 3 patterns, okay? We're going to call it the pattern recognition stages. First stage of pattern recognition is simply pattern identification. If you're not putting enough intensity, right, in terms of trying to be in front of the market consistently, you're not going to be able to easily identify a pattern that you see and then that piques your interest. The more you stay in front of the market, the more you come in 9:30 of the open and then you observe the volatility, you have certain key level that you have marked out. You have certain zone that you have identified. That's already fixed, right? So when the market open, you see how price behave around those zones. You see how price interact around those level. And then if you watch this consistently, I promise you, for multiple months at a time, you're going to start seeing pattern that happen, because you're going to start noticing around news, around specific volatile days and things of nature, when price creates certain type of condition and you see certain things repeat over and over, you are going to notice things that repeats. For me, for example, I had created my concept of ADR, right? My arcane dynamic range. Whenever I noticed that price on NQ expanded for over 80 points in terms of like my dynamic range, it was almost a guarantee that it was a clean range for continuation. And then that sometimes will overlap with some other model that I have built as well. But that was one of the very first patterns that I recognized. I say NQ does not deliver clean continuation unless it expands really, really well. I started recognizing that continuation was, a clean continuation at least, was tied to volatility and volume, right? If I didn't see that volatility being present in the market, objectively meaning that volatility mean that we have an expansion over X amount of points, for me it was 80 points or more for that range, I should not be looking to trade that continuation. More likely to stop me out, or maybe stop me before moving in my direction or something along those lines. So I just removed everything and started backtesting that, and I was able to identify that was a pattern that I could leverage. But that's the first stage, right? Identifying a pattern. Step number 2 is pattern optimization. In this phase, after you identify the pattern, you cannot really do much with it. First, you need to identify the pattern, and next you need to take that pattern that you identify and go into the backtest and try to see as many opens and see, okay, does this actually stand the test of time? Is there a way that I can potentially build it inside of my model and build it inside of my strategy? And that process will lead you to the final stage. The final stage is going to be pattern monetization. The moment you're able to identify that that pattern can be monetized, then you move into that last stage. In that very, very last stage, you find a way to monetize it and add it to your edge. And once you do that, you have confirmed that that pattern could actually be utilized, because not every single pattern can actually be monetized. That's one of the issues that I have with ICT in general. I have taken a lot of lesson from some of the concepts that ICT share. I do not consider myself, I would say, an ICT trader. I have built my own set of concepts that I utilize to day trade that I was able to identify throughout my own trading, my own experience. The issue that I noticed with ICT trader is that there's a lot of really good pattern that you will see repeat consistently, and that can be utilized to maybe determine or define why price did what it did on a specific day. But if you cannot find a way to engage with that with precision, where you also have positive expectancy for each of the trade that you take along that pattern, then that pattern is not monetizable, right? A lot of the concept and then model that are popularized are actually not profitable and don't have any sort of volatility over a long period of time. That is just a simple truth. You have to find a way to take things that you learn from different people, test it for yourself, and actually have data behind it that proves that that pattern can be monetized via backtesting, via going back 3, 4, 6, 7 years in the past and testing it and seeing it hold. That is the only way that you're going to determine whether or not a pattern that you identify can be monetized and eventually turn into a part of your edge. And last but not least is ensuring that you consistently have a system that helps you vet those pattern recognition, having a system that allows you to ensure that you show up consistently day to day and then you apply high intensity. You can make that system by adding or finding other like-minded individuals that you also trade with, that you have accountability with, and then ensure that you are doing what you need to be doing. Because when you go through a journey, if you have a partner, if you have anybody that's alongside you in that journey, it makes it extremely easy to stay disciplined, to stay accountable, because you not only have to answer to yourself. So if on any given day you feel like sluggish to wake up and go and work, guess what? You got someone else. And that's part of your system, right? Having someone else next to you that's going through the same struggle of trying to understand and build an edge. Next up, also building a system around identifying pattern, optimizing those patterns, vetting them, and eventually figuring out which one will be turned into part of your edge or which one can actually be monetized, and filtering out the one that obviously cannot be utilized at all. That is going to be extremely crucial for you to understand how can you build a system like that. For me, it's extremely simple. Identify the pattern in the live market. Once I have done that, I go into the backtest, iterate on that, and then within probably a week and a half to 2 weeks, I will know for a fact whether or not that pattern can be monetized or not, and then I'll simply move on. And then I just recycle these like this, like really, really fast. That's how I was able to build all the model that I have. But guess what? All the model that I had for maybe a year and a half, when I was essentially already profitable and then was already hitting printing from the market for my very, very first model, that model had roughly 71% win rate, 1.5 risk to reward on average. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. I would say nothing really too, like too crazy out there. But guess what? That model, after a few years, because the foundation that I have utilized to build that model was so solid, as I started digging and digging and digging, what are some other model, what are some other pattern that I'm noticing inside of this model that I'm utilizing that can help me expand? That's when I exploded and I was able to discover way more model inside of my system that are also extremely profitable, that can help me even push my risk to reward even now further. But I started small. I started with consistency, right? Because day trading is all about surviving. It's all about staying in the race, right? That first model, that's what it did for me. It allowed me to keep going by being consistent, because I didn't chase high RR. I chased stability and consistency. I chased a model that had more adaptability, although it may not give me a crazy risk to reward, but it has strong adaptability over a long period of time. And then because I stayed and I kept that intensity, I was able to uncover other models that have even a higher win rate and higher risk to reward. Crazy as it sounds. Some of my better model nowadays, the way that I trade, I have a slightly higher win rate of about 75, 80% give or take. And then some of my other models that I trade at that win rate give me anywhere between 1 to 2.5, sometimes even 1 to 3.2 on average. I mean, mind-boggling. I mean, that's the evolution. And then that jump only took a few months, right? From having one model and sticking to that and continuously finding ways to optimize. That can happen for you. I was able to pick 1 or 2 or 3 that I utilize consistently, and I don't really deviate because I know these are the highest probability trade within my model and within my systems. So that is some of the 3-step models that I have put together in terms of principle that can help you if you take lessons from this and you focus on the contextual understanding of this that I'm describing, not necessarily the procedural understanding or the procedural knowledge. And I think you should be able to take lessons from what I have shared today and find ways to implement it in your own journey in the ways that you see fit. And that will allow you to essentially uncover and reach the similar level of success in discovering and building your own edge. With that said, that's all for today's video. If you find it insightful and really helpful along your amazing journey as a trader, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to hear what's your thought on this. With that said, I have nothing else to share. Until next time, stay in profit. Peace.